Hello everyone, it's time for my Friday reads. I had a bit of a meh week. I didn't read as much as I wanted, but I still read a few things, so I wanted to update you on what I read. The first thing I finished was Elmet by Fiona Mozley. I have been reading this last week, and I just read the last few pages on Friday itself, I think. And this one, at the beginning, I was not very sure. The writing style was not capturing me, and I didn't care that much for any of the characters. It felt very disconnected, but at the end it improved. The ending was better than I expected. There was a twist that made me care more about the characters and flesh them out a little bit. So yeah, it was okay. The next thing I read was from the Asian Readathon, and that was Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. And this was sort of a domestic thriller, but it's much more than that. There's a lot of character development, and basically what it is about this family, daughter and a mother, that move into a neighborhood, and as far as I understand from the book, is a well-off neighborhood, and the connections they make with another family, the Robinsons, and how those different connections with each of the characters develop, and what that means for the lives of these people. And it has a very dramatic end. We know from the beginning that one of the Robinson daughters sets fires to one of the houses, but we don't know how, we don't know why, and the book starts from that, and then it builds up back to that event and why it happened, basically. This was a very interesting read. It was fast, and it was what I needed. I probably will not remember that book that much in a few months, but for the moment it was fun, and I really like it, and I would recommend. Then after that I picked up The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Kolbert. I picked up this for the Springathon, and this book is a non-fiction that basically talks about previous extinctions and the current extinction trend of species that we are living, and why those extinctions are happening. And each chapter more or less covers the extinction of a different species and the causes, that most of them relate back to evolution, but also to human interaction. So it goes from different very obvious things, like there are some animals that were extinct because we hunt them too much, and some of them died because we polluted their environment. But there's also other causes that are explored, like introduction of new species that then overcome the current species that we are looking at, things like that. And it was very interesting. I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend. And then the last book I finished this week, it's Hidden Figures by Margot Lee Shetterly. And I think most people know what this book is about. It's also a non-fiction book about the Black African American women that worked in NASA around the time where they went to the moon. There's the famous movie, but the book was a bit different from the movie. The book focused a lot more on the inner works of NASA and the society at the time, and a lot less in the three particular women that we follow. It still talks about these three women, but they are not it's not biographies of them like the movie is in a sense. So yeah, that was interesting. I read this for my book club, and because I had seen the movie and I thought, well, maybe there's not that much to add to that. I didn't want to buy the book, so I read from the library, but they had it in Dutch. So I might have missed some things. it's not the same experience for me. I'm not as fluent in Dutch as I am in English, but still I like the book. I think it was very interesting, and I think it adds a lot to the movie. So I would recommend to read it, even if you have already seen the movie. But that's all I read this week, and I'm only in the middle of 2 books, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, and I have been in the middle of that for a long time. And the other one is Unsheltered by Barbara Kingsolver, and to my surprise I'm really liking that. The book deals with well, it's basically centered in a house in New Jersey, I believe, and it has 2 timelines. It has the timeline of the right now, and there is a family a bit with some problems that lives in that house, and there is the timeline of I think it's 1800s, and it alternates each chapter in between the 2 timelines, but they are connected in a way, because in the current timeline the owners of the house have money problems, and they want to fix the house, so they are researching the history of the house to see if they can somehow historically justify that the government gives them aid to repair the house. And then in the 1800s timeline, it's also interesting because there is a lot of talk about Darwin's evolution theory, because one of the protagonists in that timeline has correspondence with Darwin himself. So I'm finding that very interesting. I was not sure if I was gonna like it. I have never read anything before from Barbara Kingsolver, and I was a bit apprehensive to try her out, but I'm really liking it so far. I think it's super interesting and well written, and I'm planning to finish that today, hopefully. And then once I finish that, I have several things that I want to pick up next week. One of the things that I want to pick up next week is Iran Awakening by Shirin Ebadi. This is for my Asian readathon, Asian readathon, and it's a memoir of this woman, Shirin Ebadi, that she's a lawyer in Iran, and she fought a lot and still fights, I believe, for human rights in Iran. And she won a Nobel Peace Prize for that. So this is the story of how she got there, and I'm really looking forward to this one. It was highly recommended by my Iranian friend, so I hope I will not be disappointed. And then this weekend I'm also planning to read Walden by David Henry Thoreau. That is for my springathon as well. And that is a non-fiction about Thoreau when he moved to the middle of the forest, I believe, and his musings on nature and on society. So we'll see how that goes. It was for a book club that I was going to be part of, but the pandemic canceled that. So I'm still interested in the book, so I'm gonna read it. And then the last book that I'm for sure gonna read next week is The 10th Muse by Catherine Chung, and this I'm going to read as a buddy read with Doris. We started on Monday, so I'm really looking forward to that buddy read. And this one is about I believe it's the Chinese immigrant that is a mathematician that is trying to solve this very famous mathematical problem. So we'll see how that goes. That sounds very appealing to me. But yeah, that's all for me. A quick Friday reads today. I hope you're all well and healthy, and see you soon.